Hello everyone, I'm sorry I haven't been able to make as many videos as I would have liked in this very hype time for Tekken fans. It's been so much fun to see all this new information coming out about Tekken 8. As you can tell, I have a pretty bad cold. I'm sorry if I'm going to be sniveling and coughing throughout this video. But I think now we, for the first time, have gameplay footage in bulk and we can understand what this game is going to play like. I've gotten my hands on everything I can in terms of gameplay, broken it down, analyzed it, taken notes, because the big question for me is, what is the meta game here? How do you play Tekken 8 well? How is it different from how we play 7? And how will the heat system impact the sort of general shape of a Tekken match? And like I say, I think we have a pretty clear picture of it now. Here in the background, I have these fantastic slides that they've released for all of the currently available characters, and there's a lot of information here. Basically tells you what the play style of your character will be in the new game, because it details how they interact with the heat system, and the heat system is huge now. They've used it to give all the different characters, I think, their own personalities and play styles, and that's pretty great, because in 7 I feel like all the characters play pretty much the exact same way. It's just that some of them are very good at playing that, and some of them are a lot weaker. Whereas now they feel a lot more different, which is good. So I want to talk about what I think Tekken 8 will play like, mainly from 3 perspectives. I want to talk about character playstyles, I want to talk about combos, which are different now, and I want to talk about mix-up situations. And that's, you probably already understand that that's a huge part of this new game, because there are all these new situations where you can force the mix-up in the 50-50, right? So before we do that, let's talk a bit about heat. We need to sort of recap and do a refresher on it. You've heard about it by now, but it is pretty complex. So to make the video make sense, we need to recap it. So you can enter heat in 2 ways. First one is heat burst. It's the top move listed here for all the characters. It's universal. This is the one where you have a zoom in on the character with a camera, and they do a slam down and you go into heat, and you get 1 heat token for doing this. You can also go into heat with one of your heat engagers. This is like the more powerful way generally. So you hit with one of these moves down here. Lars has 5 listed, and that activates heat, gives you a free heat dash, which doesn't spend any tokens, and now you're in heat and you can combo. So the heat tokens can be spent either on 1 heat dash. You can do 2 if you have 2 tokens, but if you do your heat smash, which is this move down here, it doesn't matter how much heat you have left or how many tokens you have, it will spend whatever is left and it will exit heat. But these are very powerful moves, and you have 1 per character, right? So it's called Ultimo Jaguar for King, and it's called Thunderbird Descent for Lars, right? So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about what the system is going to be like. I think I want to start with combos, really. So for the most part, combos are very similar to the way they are right now. You're going to launch, do some filler, do a spin move, and then an ender. If you don't use heat, that's the general shape of a combo. It's the one we have right now. The main change being that spin moves are a bit different now. Some of them are very vertical, some of them are a little bit more horizontal, but they don't spin the character as far away anymore. And it makes combos easier to perform, because you don't have to dash or run in, maybe cancel it while running or something like that to get your combo. So it's an ease of use thing, and that's a general design direction that Tekken has been heading in for like well over a decade now. And there's a lot more of that right here. Tekken is definitely going to be easier to play than ever. Hopefully there's still a lot of space for the people who put in the work and the time to distinguish themselves as more skilled, because that's very, very important. If you don't have that, the casual players won't be interested either, because they have nothing to aspire for, right? They have nothing that they can work towards, which is what I think is one of the main pulls of fighting games. But anyway, but then you can also use the heat system in your combos, right? So in the trailers, we see people use the heat burst, the universal heat, in the middle of combos a lot, and that confused me a little bit, because it seemed very wasteful. But you can tell why they want to do it. If you're comboing the opponent and you're not currently in heat, you can use a heat burst, and now you are in heat, and you can use your heat stuff in the combo. And heat burst is very easy to use in that sense, because it causes a second spun or bound state. It will bind or spin the opponent at your feet, similar to 6 in Tag 2. So you can actually spin in a combo, do your heat engager, get a second sort of a spun state, and now you're in heat and you can use in heat stuff, or maybe your heat smash to end your combo. Say for example that your combo will kill if you get access to your heat smash. Then you definitely want to do this every single time to make sure that the combo is going to kill and you just take the round. You only get access to heat once per round, and that's very important to remember. In the gameplay footage that we've seen so far, the matches that are online right now, they're obviously not being played very well, but you should sort of expect that. It's a completely new system, and people don't know the new move list or the new mechanics. There's a lot of just getting into heat right away and then spending it right away and then just doing a rage art, the cinematic stuff. I haven't seen a single rage art getting blocked yet in any of these matches. They always hit, and I want to see it on block because that's an interesting situation now, because rage arts are no longer launch punishable on block, which is pretty big. We'll probably get to it when we talk about mix-ups later. But you want to use heat in a clever way if your combo is going to kill, but maybe you don't want to use your heat smash or spend all of your heat in your combo. There's one example where a Jack player does a combo, uses a heat burst in the middle of the combo, and then just normally ends the combo with back 3-2-2, which is a combo ender that he has right now. And that means that he's going to exit his combo in heat with a full meter, one heat token that he got off of the heat burst, and he can now, in theory, apply in heat Oki, which might be very powerful depending on what character you play. But it's obviously going to be much better in terms of heat economy to do a powerful combo that doesn't rely on heat smash as the ender, and you get a full combo worth of damage, but now you have heat that, if you play well, you can sustain for maybe the end of the round, as opposed to maybe wasting it on getting a couple of heat dash options blocked or using the heat smash right away. And again, it's going to come down to what your character does with heat, and it creates all this diversity. But I think bad players, and all of us in the beginning, are going to go into heat right away, waste heat right away. Good players are going to go into heat when it counts, and they're going to exit heat when it counts, or try and sustain it, because I think that's going to be a lot more powerful. The reason I think a lot of players will want to extend their heat or in heat state has to do with this heat system stuff up here, but we'll get to that a little bit later. I want to talk about combos a bit more first. So yeah, you can spin normally, you can heat engage, and you can also use your heat dashes. And if you look at combos with heat dashes right now, you can tell that if you do them on an opponent with their legs up like that, the dash actually pushes them back and they go further than they normally would. So heat dash is a way to actually create lengthen combos as well. So it's interesting. You have limited stuff you can do with heat, and you have to think about, okay, do I want to extend the combo length to make sure that I get the wall? Do I want to go into a heat smash to make sure that I get the kill? Am I going to use a heat engager because I'm not currently in heat so that I can enter heat during the combo and then exit it in heat? Or am I just going to do a combo normally and save my heat for later to when I hit with a heat engager? You know, there's a lot more strategy there, and I think your ability to be strategic with heat is going to define how well you play this game. All right, let's talk a little bit about the mix-up situations, the way they look right now. So you can force the mix-up a lot easier in this game. And the reason that might be a bit of a problem from a balance perspective is, I think the best way to think about it right now as a Tekken 7 player is think about new tactics, the new wall crush thing that they came out with. It was obviously some sort of a beta test for something they wanted to do in 8. And we can think about Lars here. He has a usable one. It's forward 4-3, low kick into the follow-up, and that causes this slumped state at the wall, and you're guaranteed a mix-up. Problem is, when you hit with that move with Lars, he doesn't have a strong 50-50 at all that he can capitalize with. His lows are slow and launch punishable for the most part, and his mids aren't great either. They're kind of punishable or bad. Doesn't even really have a natural extension to his down forward one. So he can't, like if I were Bob or Miguel, I might do a down forward 1-1 or a back 2-2. He can't do that, and so his mix-up is really weak. But if you're playing a character like Paul Phoenix is the classic example, when he's standing next to you in the game right now, you know that he could do a mid that ends your life instantly or a low that ends your life instantly. and he still has these moves in the new game, right? So forcing a mix-up situation for Paul, especially when he now has his Heat Smash Demolition Ball, which is a more powerful version of the Demolition Man, is going to be much, much better. So maybe forcing the constant mix-up is much better for Paul, and that's what he wants to use Heat for, whereas a character like Lars will probably try and want to be in Heat for longer. And if you're playing a Mishima in this game, you're going to want to be in Heat for as long and as much as possible, because as long as you're in Heat, your character plays itself and wins for free. We're going to get to that, but I laughed my eyes out. It's the funniest thing ever. I've made fun of Mishimas during the later years of Tekken 7 for being a lot easier to play than people think. In this game, Mishimas are going to be they're probably the easiest characters that we've seen so far. They might be the easiest to play characters in the game. The execution barrier to Mishimas is officially gone now, so I can make fun of them for another decade, and it feels really good. We're gonna get to it. They're so easy right now. They're so easy. All right, so another really interesting thing when we talk about the forced mix-up situation, right, is that armor moves are still in the game, and they're changed a little bit. So Lars still has X-Ray here. It's one of the worst armor moves in the game right now. I really hope it's buffed, because this is kind of the character I want to play right now. And this Power Crush is trash right now. Hopefully it's buffed. But what they do now is, if you armor through stuff, the hit becomes empowered. And you can see that when people armor through stuff in the game right now, they sort of, there's this red glow, and they kind of power up and they smash harder. So when somebody forces the mix-up against you, you can go into an armor move, and as long as they don't do a fast low option, you can go through that and you neutralize the situation, and you do damage back, right? Now lows beat armor in Tekken, and if you have a very fast counter hit low, maybe Miguel's down back 4, you can maybe counter hit the armor move and then get guaranteed damage on the ground. So again, it becomes very matchup specific. For example, one really interesting thing is, if we look at Martial Law here, we can tell that one of his heat engagers is Dragon Cannon forward forward 3, but we can tell that his Power Crush, his armor move, is also forward forward 3, and that is why when you look at gameplay footage of Law right now, when somebody's trying to force a mix on him, he just does this move, gets a powered up version of this very powerful armor move, and then he heat engages off of it, and he's going to turn that into a massive combo. So in a game where armor moves are going to have a much bigger role because of these forced mix-ups, this is like a character defining trait for Law. He can heat engage with his armor move. It's huge. It's going to be like one of the main things you have to think about when you play against this character. For example, is that armor move linear enough that I can step it? I might actually force a mix-up situation, then have Marshall do the armor move, but I'm walking. I'm not even going to do the mix-up, and now I'm like to the side, nothing personal, kid, and then I do something on the side instead. So, you know, a lot of diversity in how the different characters interact with the system, and I think it's really interesting. Another thing we have to talk about is the fact that low parry is nerfed now. Low parries do not allow for the same powerful combos that they do in Tekken 7, which means that it's basically an indirect buff to 50-50s and to lows. I personally think that low parries were kind of perfect the way they were right now, because they're hard to do, they require a hard read, they're risky, and I think you deserve to get some stuff when you perform one successfully. It's also true that in some situations, characters in this game have been so overpowered, like on release Leroy, that a successful low parry was pretty much the only way for a player to really get in and do some damage when they were just cycling their most powerful stuff. So the mix-ups are extremely powerful, and that means that a character like Paul, who specializes in the 50-50, is going to be very powerful, right? So you have to like find out what armor options does your character have, what counter hit lows do they have that deal with armor, what 50-50 do they want to apply, and how do they want to use the heat? You know, do they want to spend it right away? Do they want to force the mix-up? Do they want to sustain the state? And so on. Really interesting thing, for example, is that King, one of his things is that he can replenish his heat with some moves. He can go into heat, hit with specific moves, and get heat back. So he's going to try and sustain the state for longer, you know. The diversity is really cool. Final thing to mention on the mix-up front is that we have Rage Arts still, and they're not launch punishable anymore. They're supposed to be -13 now, which is really crazy, and so far the change that I think is by far the worst. I'm kind of excited about a lot of this. This seems pretty whack, because now they're as punishable as a hop kick, and if somebody's forcing a mix-up on you, obviously you can just do a rage art, which is an armor move, and I think you're going to end up with a lot of people watching a lot of movies. There's a lot of watching movies going on right now. There's a lot of watching rage arts and cinematic things. They look cool in a trailer and they feel fun now, but a couple of weeks in, you don't want to sit there and watch things happening that are just cinematic that you have no control over and that you've seen a million times before. It's also true that the rage arts right now seem to be longer and more annoying to have to watch than they've ever been. Law's rage art is very long, several seconds longer than it was before. Same thing for Paul, right? And yeah, they look cool and they've done a good job with them, but they're way too long, and sitting around watching movies isn't what it's about. And you know, some of these heat smashes sort of perform themselves, and it's a cool cinematic or whatever, but I think you want this feeling of you controlling the character and doing the things that happen on screen. So the non-launch punishable rage art, meaning that you can just do rage arts and attempt them more, is going to be, I think it's going to be annoying. I don't think it's going to be a huge, like, good thing. Why would you do an armor move that might be launch punishable when you can do a -13 rage art and just get a combo worth of damage? Yeah, maybe they'll make them easier to avoid using movement or something like that. We'll have to see, but for now, I think the change to rage art is one of the weaker choices they've made. Now, finally, let's talk about the most fun thing and the most interesting and fun change for me in all of Tekken 8 so far, which is the area up here in these slides called Heat System. This is where I want to talk a little bit about character play styles, right? So they've said in panels before that when you are in heat, it will improve, I think they said, the personality of your character. But it's like this: the things that your character is supposed to be specialized in and good at become emphasized when you are in heat. So this is not a way to engage or start heat or end heat. These are things that become more powerful for as long as you are in heat, which is why don't just do them in combos. Don't activate them when you start the combo and then deactivate heat when you exit the combo. Maybe end the combo normally, stay in heat for like maybe the rest of the round if you play well, and get these cool benefits that make your character more specialized and fun to play, right? So let's take one example. We're gonna take Lars because it's like by far the most interesting character to me so far in this roster. I think he looks really cool now. Still looks kind of weak because his mix-up is crap or whatever, but there's stuff in here and I really like him. So what happens with Lars when he's in heat? Well, it says, first of all, 1, allows the use of a powered-up version of limited entry. This is a new stance for Lars. It's the one where he does his down back 1-3 right now, the low, high, low that he has, and then he can hold down to do this little spin. It's a new stance for him now, and it's where he has that new hand low swipe that we've seen. So a powered up version of that. And then 2, allows the use of new silent entry transition moves. Silent entry is typically gated behind dynamic entry for Lars. So he goes into dynamic and then into silent. But now he can go directly into silent, which is great because one of the main weaknesses of the character is he doesn't have any Oki. When you knock somebody down and away right now, you do dynamic and then usually dynamic 2 because it's an O kick around hitting mid, but that's basically it. Your low options don't really exist. It's just very weak. But if you're in heat and you go directly into silent to close the gap, now you have silent 2, hits grounded, counter hits, get up kicks. He has great mids from that stance. It's much better. So the transition move that they list here is called Rebellion, and I'm pretty sure that this is the lightning shoulder tackle that we've seen him do in the trailers. It seems to have some sort of armor or parry property on it as well, so really strong. So he's like lightning dashing in and forcing these mix-ups while he's in heat. And then he has this improved limited entry stance, which is the spin down, and then we know for a fact that he has a very powerful mix-up from there. So that's really cool. So Lars is going to try and like get into silent and mix, and I think because he lacks mix-ups normally, I think you want to be in heat with the character, and he already has good combos even without heat. Probably usually does. So maybe do vanilla combos with him and then try and fight in heat for longer. If we look at his heat engagers, they're not super interesting. It's very important to understand what heat engagers you have because they're like the most powerful moves you have right now. He's got Dynamic 3, which is that long, slow plus on blocked mid that he has from Dynamic now. Very rarely hits currently. He's got Double Barrel, which is Dynamic 1-2. He has that now as well. You very rarely hit with that raw. Not even as a whiff punisher, it's a little bit too slow because it comes out of Dynamic. He has something new called Electric Jolt. I don't think he has that currently. That might be good, I guess. And then he has Silent 1, which, you know, if you're in Silent and you're already mixing, that could work. But look at the top one, Delta Slicer 1-1-1. This could be extremely good because 1-1-1 for Lars is the counter hit 10 frame jam string where he does the 1-1, the 1-2-3 with his hand like that. So it's natural on counter hit 10 frames to impact, which means that it turns this move into a 10 frame counter hit launcher in this game if it works the same way. So you can create a frame trap, press 1-1-1 with Lars, do the triple hand, and now you've done a bunch of damage already because it's a 3-hit string, and he heat engages off of that. You're going to do a massive combo, probably end your combo without spending your heat tokens. So you exit the combo, you're still in heat, you've done a massive chunk of damage to the opponent, and now you do your new silent transitions, you do your new limited entry stance, and you mix for these powerful things for the rest of the round, and you can turn this 10 frame thing into probably an entire round if you use it well. Super cool. So yeah, there's some interesting fun flavor right there. It's going to be super fun to try a Lars. And if we look at some of these others, for example, Jack, apparently his new poopy stance is called Gamma Howl, so I guess it really is Rip Gigas, but he gets a more powerful version of that stance for as long as he's in heat, which is really cool as well. Maybe you go into heat and you just use the more powerful in heat moves without spending heat tokens to do powerful combos, and then you don't have to do your heat smash. You know what I mean? The Meteor Raid, which he has right here, which I'm guessing is the forward to Railgun Strike. So, you know, maybe your combos are just really powerful while you are in heat because your stance is more powerful and you don't need to use the heat smash. That'd be super cool. And now let's laugh a little bit at Mishima's because, oh my god, this blew my mind so hard when I read it. But when you're in heat as Kazuya, first of all, you get your Devil form, which means that your 3-hit Devil Hell Sweep is just available, which means the mix-up is insane. But then number 2 allows the use of Electric Wind God Fist without just frame input, which means that the electric is easy now. You can activate heat in a billion different ways. Just do your heat engager, for Christ's sakes, or your heat burst, the universal one, right away. It's not like there's a bunch of risk associated with that. And then just try and stay in heat. As long as you're attacking, you can sustain it for pretty much the entire round. It's 10 seconds by default, but if you're attacking, you can extend it for more. And now you just have free no execution electrics and the 3-hit Devil Hell Sweep for the rest of the round. So these characters are officially super fucking easy right now, and you don't have to learn anything. The same thing is true for Jin. He gets Electric Thrusting Uppercut and Hook Fist without Just Frame for as long as he's in heat. I think this is a change that they've implemented because they want new players and casual players to be able to pick the most famous characters in the game and do the most famous moves in the game without having to spend, 15 minutes in practice mode learning electrics first. So from that perspective, it makes sense. But, we don't know what the meta is going to be like. We don't know just how dumb and overpowered this is going to be. Maybe it's fine. But, we know for a fact that we're going to be able to laugh at how easy Mishimas are for like another decade now. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see. I don't know if it's happened already. I'm going to have to try and Google it, but it's going to be interesting to see what mental gymnastics the Mishima boys are already implementing to try and explain how there is still any sort of difficulty or execution associated with these characters at all. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the meta of Tekken 8. I think just the big takeaway for me, or some conclusions here, I think a good player will try to really use movement and then whiff punish with heat engage. I think that's going to be a big thing, because your heat engagers are very powerful launchers, right? They're some of your most powerful launchers. You do that, you do a combo without heat smashing at the end, and now you've done a massive chunk of damage, but you're still in heat and you can sustain heat to be dangerous for the rest of the round. And then you're going to try and capitalize on your heat system to win the rest of the round, right? I think that's what's going to happen. And if that happens, the opponent try and deal with the fact that you've done that will probably try and activate their heat quickly to sort of retaliate or stay alive. So it's going to be, you know, get to the heat a lot of the time. But then depending on what your character does in heat, what they have for their heat system, the playstyles are going to be kind of diverse and really interesting. So matchup knowledge will definitely be a thing. Armor moves are overemphasized, raid charts are overemphasized. There's a lot of watching movies, which is a little bit worrying, but overall I think this just looks extremely flavorful and cool, and I love the fact that the movement is still there. We just need, you know, calmer matches, less of this constant heat spamming, so we can, you know, get a clearer picture of how is the game played well. But there you go, those are my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching this. Let me know what I missed as usual and how you feel about all of this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Mishimas are so easy right now. They're so easy. They're like the easiest characters now. Free electrics? Oh my god, that's the best change. This is the best change.